Scientists can no longer dismiss the phenomenon as imagination. Too many people are reporting the same thing, a strange certainty, a countdown. And in some cases, the prediction appears to come true. So scientists begin asking a terrifying question. Can the human brain actually detect death before the conscious mind knows it's coming? The first experiments are simple. Volunteers are placed inside laboratories. Their brain activity is monitored. Their heart rate is monitored. Their breathing is monitored. Their blood chemistry is monitored. Every possible signal is recorded. Then something strange happens. One volunteer suddenly says, "It's happening again." The scientists ask what she means. She looks at the clock. Then she says, "I have 11 hours. The room becomes completely silent. The scientists don't know whether to believe her, so they keep recording. Nothing unusual happens. For hours, she appears completely healthy. But 11 hours later, her brain activity suddenly changes. Not enough to kill her, not enough to cause any obvious medical emergency, but enough to make the scientists realize something. Her brain had detected a pattern long before the doctors could, and now they want to know exactly what it detected. The second experiment. The scientists select another volunteer. This time, they don't tell him what they're testing. They simply monitor his brain. For several days, everything is normal. Then, the computer detects something. A pattern, a tiny change in brain activity. The scientists replay the recording again and again. The pattern appears several hours before the volunteer reports anything unusual. They begin comparing the data. The same pattern appears in other people. Different brains, different ages, different lifestyles, but the same strange neurological signature. The scientists are shocked because this means the brain might not be predicting death through one specific signal. It may be combining thousands of tiny signals, like a massive biological computer. Your heart, your blood, your hormones, your immune system, your nervous system, your environment, everything. And your brain may be constantly calculating the probability of what happens next, including whether your body will survive. The discovery. After months of research, the scientists reach a disturbing conclusion. The brain doesn't appear to see the future. It does something more complicated. It predicts it. Think about a person standing on a road. They see a car moving toward them. Their brain doesn't wait until the car reaches them. It calculates the direction, the speed, the distance, and the likely outcome. Now imagine doing that with your entire body. Your brain constantly monitors thousands of biological signals. And if those signals suddenly begin moving toward a catastrophic outcome, your brain could theoretically recognize the trajectory. Not because it knows tomorrow, but because it knows what's happening right now. The future is simply the direction those signals are pointing toward, and that means something terrifying. Your brain might be able to tell you that you're going to die before your conscious mind has any idea that you're in danger. But then, something goes wrong. The scientists decide to test whether the prediction can be changed. They find a volunteer whose brain predicts a fatal event. The prediction is 24 hours away. The scientists don't know what the event will be, so they isolate the volunteer. No cars, no dangerous equipment, no outside contact. Medical staff are everywhere. The room is completely safe. They think they've eliminated every possible danger. The countdown begins. 24 hours. The volunteer remains perfectly healthy. The scientists become confident. Maybe they can stop it. Maybe the prediction isn't destiny. Maybe it's simply a warning. And if they change the environment, they can change the outcome. At 12 hours remaining, nothing happens. At 6 hours, still nothing. At 1 hour, the scientists are almost celebrating. Then the volunteer suddenly looks at the clock. He says, "Something changed." The scientists ask, "What?" He doesn't answer immediately. Then he says, "The countdown disappeared." Everyone freezes. The brain monitor shows something completely unexpected. The prediction is gone. There is no longer a neurological signal indicating imminent death. The scientists think they've succeeded. They prevented the future. But then, another signal appears. A new countdown. Not 24 hours, not 12, not even 1 hour, 6 minutes. The new question, the scientists are terrified because if the prediction can change, then something else must be happening. The brain isn't simply predicting one future. It is constantly recalculating. Every decision changes the variables. Every movement changes the variables. Every new piece of information changes the variables. The brain predicts one outcome. You change something. The brain predicts another. You change something again. The prediction changes again. So perhaps the future isn't fixed. Perhaps your brain is constantly looking at millions of possible futures and choosing the most likely one. That means the countdown isn't necessarily saying, this is when you will die. It may actually be saying, this is the most probable point at which your current path ends. And suddenly, the ability becomes much more powerful. Because if you know the path, you might be able to change it. Can you cheat death? Imagine your brain tells you 24 hours. You immediately change everything. You don't drive, you don't fly, you don't leave your house, you don't take risks. You stay surrounded by doctors. You survive. Your brain updates the prediction. Now it says 72 hours. You survive again. Now, 1 week. You start thinking you've defeated death. But then something happens. The prediction disappears completely. You don't understand why. You feel relieved. You go back to normal life. Months pass. Nothing happens. Eventually, you stop thinking about it. You forget. Until one morning, you wake up with the same feeling. But this time, there is no number, no countdown, no warning. Just one thought. Don't go outside today. You ignore it because you survived before. You get dressed. You open the door. And suddenly your brain gives you another message. This is the path theory. This creates an even stranger possibility. What if your brain isn't predicting death? What if it's predicting choices? Imagine that every decision creates a different path. You wake up, you choose to stay home. One path, you choose to go outside. Another path, you take one road. Another path, you take another road. Another path. Your brain might be constantly calculating these possibilities, and somewhere deep inside, it knows which paths are becoming dangerous. That's why sometimes people experience strange instincts. A person decides not to board a plane. A person suddenly changes their route. Someone forgets something and turns back home. Someone feels uncomfortable entering a place and leaves. Sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes something does. In our fictional scenario, scientists discover that these instincts are not random. They are fragments of the brain's prediction system. Most of the times, we never notice them. But what if one day the system becomes conscious? What if humans suddenly become aware of the calculations their brains have always been making? That would change humanity forever. The government finds out. The scientific team tries to keep the discovery secret, but secrets don't stay secret for long. A government agency learns about the research. At first, officials are interested for medical reasons. If the brain can predict catastrophic biological events, millions of lives could potentially be saved. Heart attacks could be detected early. Strokes could be detected early. Fatal accidents might be prevented. People could receive warnings before disasters. It could become the greatest medical breakthrough in human history. But then someone asks a different question. If a person's brain can predict their own death, could it predict someone else's? The room goes silent, because if the answer is yes, the technology would no longer be only medical. It would become political, military, economic, and potentially terrifying. Imagine a system capable of predicting which person is most likely to die tomorrow. Imagine governments using it. Imagine insurance companies using it. Imagine hospitals using it. Imagine employers using it. Imagine criminals discovering it. The ability to predict death could become one of the most powerful technologies ever created. The first secret file. The government creates a classified program. The purpose is simple. Find out whether death prediction can be used beyond the individual. They bring in two people. Person A, Person B. They monitor both brains. At first, nothing happens. Then person A suddenly receives a prediction. 24 hours. Person B receives nothing. The scientists monitor both. 24 hours later, person A dies. The scientists are shocked. But then they notice something. Person B's brain activity had changed several hours before person A died. Why? They investigate. They run the experiment again. Same result. Person B appears to detect something when person A is approaching death. This leads to a horrifying possibility. Maybe the human brain isn't completely isolated. Maybe humans unconsciously detect changes in other people. Maybe emotions, behavior, body language, chemical signals, or subtle environmental changes allow the brain to recognize danger in someone nearby. And if that ability could be amplified, a person might potentially predict another person's death. The most dangerous question the scientists now ask: can a person's prediction be transferred to another brain? They connect two volunteers to experimental brain monitoring equipment. One receives a countdown, the other doesn't. They begin the experiment. Nothing happens. 5 minutes, 10, 20. Then the second volunteer suddenly looks terrified. The scientist asks, "What do you feel?" He says, "I don't know." "What's wrong?" He points toward the other volunteer. Then he says, "I think he's going to die." The scientists freeze because nobody told him. He shouldn't know, but somehow his brain has detected the same signal. Now they have a problem. If one person's brain can detect another person's predicted death, then perhaps death prediction isn't just an individual ability. It could be a shared human system, something ancient, something buried deep inside the brain, something evolution may have created to help humans detect danger in one another. Why would evolution create it? Think about early humans. Thousands of years ago, humans lived in dangerous environments: predators, enemies, injuries, disease, extreme weather. A person who could notice danger slightly earlier had an advantage. If your brain could detect that another member of your group was becoming seriously ill, you could react. If your brain could recognize subtle signs of danger, you could escape. Evolution rewards survival. So perhaps humans already possess primitive versions of this ability. We simply don't consciously experience it. But what if evolution eventually pushed it further? What if humans evolved to the point where the brain could calculate biological danger with incredible accuracy? Then death prediction wouldn't be magic. It would be the ultimate survival mechanism. Except, there would be one problem. The better you become at predicting death, the more aware you become of your own mortality. And that could change human psychology completely. The world changes. Imagine everyone suddenly develops this ability. You meet someone new, you shake their hand, and your brain gives you a number. 30 years, you meet another person, 7 years, another, tomorrow. Would you treat people differently? Would you avoid people with short predictions? Would people with long predicted lifespans become more valuable? Would society discriminate against people who are predicted to die soon? Imagine applying for a job. The employer doesn't ask, "What are your qualifications?" They ask, "How long does your brain say you have left?" Imagine buying life insurance. The company doesn't estimate your risk using statistics. It simply scans your brain. Imagine relationships. Before marrying someone, you could know exactly how much time you might have together. Would that make love stronger, or would it destroy love? Because imagine falling deeply in love with someone and knowing you have only 6 months together. Would you live every moment more intensely, or would you spend every moment terrified of the ending? The final experiment. The scientists eventually decide to perform one final experiment. They choose a volunteer. He receives no information. He is placed inside a room. His brain is monitored. The scientists ask him to imagine his future. He closes his eyes, and then something strange happens. His brain activity changes dramatically. The computer begins calculating. The scientists watch the screen. A number appears. 365 days. 1 year. The scientists are confused. He isn't dying today. He's not dying tomorrow. He's apparently healthy. So they continue the experiment. The next volunteer receives 20 years. Another, 48 years. Another, 9 days. The predictions seem impossible to verify immediately. So the scientists begin recording them. They wait, months pass, years pass. Some predictions come true, others don't. But then they discover something. The predictions become more accurate when people are under stress. The brain becomes better at detecting future danger when the body is pushed toward its limits. And then they discover the most disturbing pattern of all. The predictions are not always about natural death. Sometimes, the brain predicts death caused by another human being. The final warning. One scientist volunteers to test the system on himself. He sits down, the machine starts. He closes his eyes. The scientists expect a normal result. Instead, the computer begins displaying unusual activity. The scientist opens his eyes. Everyone waits. He looks at the screen. The prediction appears. 17 hours. Nobody speaks. He asks, "Can you tell me how?" The scientist can't. They only know the probability. 17 hours. The scientist leaves the laboratory. He decides to change everything. He stays away from roads. He avoids public places. He stays inside. He locks the doors. He calls his family. He tells them he loves them. 16 hours pass. Nothing happens. 15, 14, 13. The scientist begins to believe he has escaped the prediction. Then, the countdown changes. Instead of decreasing, it increases. 17 hours. Everyone watches in disbelief. The prediction isn't counting down anymore. It's counting up. The scientist hasn't escaped death. Something else has happened. His brain has stopped predicting his death and started predicting his survival. For the first time, the scientists realized something. The brain isn't a death clock. It's a survival calculator. And if that's true, then perhaps the human brain has been doing something incredible for millions of years. It has been constantly asking one question. How do I keep you alive? Every heartbeat, every reflex, every instinct, every fear, every sudden feeling, every moment you decide to move away from danger may be part of that system. But then the scientists discover one final anomaly. One brain doesn't produce a prediction. Not 50 years, not 10 years, not tomorrow, nothing. The brain simply refuses to calculate. The scientists scan it again. Nothing. Again. Nothing. Then the volunteer opens his eyes and says, "I know why." The scientists ask, "Why?" He looks at them and whispers, "Because there is no future for me to predict." The room goes completely silent. The machine suddenly shuts down. And on the screen, one final message appears. Prediction failed. End of part